He's not my MVP anyway, so I was right. Let's go to the Rockets roundup. Woo, Rockets. Yeah, lift off, light the fuse. Okay. All right, this is gonna be a short Rockets roundup. Why? Why, you may ask? Because the Rockets really aren't doing anything very interesting right now. It's the middle of the season. They're going nowhere except adding ping pong balls. But they did sneak a victory. I don't know if they even really wanted the victory against the San Antonio Spurs because Eric fucking Gordon put the team on his back, though. I think he scored 31 points and he had 10 field goal attempts. Granted, he had like 7 free throws, or he hit 7 free throws. He had 10 free throw attempts. The point really being is if you score 31 points and you end up with 10 field goal attempts for the game, that is what we like to call a monster fucking game. That is one of the best, most efficient scoring nights you can possibly have. I love you, Eric Gordon. Go to a real team. Go find the 3 other Ninja Turtles and get yourself that chip you deserve to get that $20 million guaranteed. But James, I'm gonna let you start this Rockets roundup.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from last night's win, which was, I'll tell you, a whole lot of fun to watch, is Kevin Porter Jr. He didn't handle the ball as much. He wasn't really playing point guard very much. Him and Jalen were a little more staggered, and Porter Jr. saw the floor quite often with DJ Augustine, and it looked better. He had a pretty solid night, and especially a great performance down the clutch, and he looked more in his element, right? And I couldn't help but notice a few accounts tweet out like, you can't tell me KPJ is not a point guard, or like people doubted my franchise point guard, and they're like, KPJ is a point guard was the general sentiment. And I thought, hold on now. He played kind of less like a point guard than we've seen him play all season last year. And he had a good game. KPJ is a sixth man. That's my opinion. And I don't think that's a knock on a player at all. I think the NBA history is filled with legendary sixth men. So, it's a position in basketball, not a position, but you know what I mean? It's a role in basketball that I respect personally, right? I look back on Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford, Eric Gordon 5 years ago or whatever with respect. I don't think those guys were scrubs. I just think that they played a certain brand of basketball that was more conducive to trying to score on second units. And that's what I think KPJ should do. I don't think he's a full-time starting point guard. That's my main takeaway from last night's game.
Yeah, I've been I don't have been screaming off the rooftops. I don't live in Houston, and I don't care to get into the mud on Rockets Twitter because those people can be real dumb. Not to insult Rockets fans, but some of the people on Rockets Twitter are real dumb. And here's the thing. Kevin Porter Jr. having a good game and Kevin Porter Jr. being a point guard don't need to be the same thing. He can,
Exactly.
and I think the point that that a lot of people have made with he's not a point guard, and they're like, well, he's learning a new role. I'm like, okay, so what? He's going to be a bad NBA player trying to become a point guard so he can become a bad NBA point guard when maybe he could be a pretty good NBA something else. Look, the Rockets gave this guy a lot of time to try to play a position he never had played. And he wasn't very good at it. And it probably is the reason why he never really played there before he got to the Rockets. I get the idea of wanting to see if he can do it because of his ability to create space off the dribble, which is becoming now the most important skill for NBA point guards. It's not like the passing. It's the ability to create space for yourself and then, create shots and then, good passing angles for yourself. But you're right. He's probably best as a sixth man, best as an off guard. And the other thing is that let's be real here. Jalen Green, you want to be the point guard of the future. Who even cares if, KPJ is a point guard? No, I mean, cool, maybe he is, but I'd rather Jalen Green be the point guard. I don't really see why people have hitched their wagon to that idea. it was always an experiment, and the reason why experiments are fun is that they're okay if they fail.
Yeah, right. Let me touch on a lot of things you said there because I liked all of them. Like when you run an experiment because you see some similar properties between two things, right? And you want to see how much crossover there is. It may be that there's not much. It's like I'm not much of a scientist, so I'm struggling to, but it's
Oh,
like,
what you're
okay,
saying is correct.
let's say that scientists observe that there's a certain pattern in a dolphin's brain, okay, that is similar to a pattern in a human's brain, right? And they go, holy fuck, dolphins might think on the exact same level as humans. So then they run a bunch of experiments and they go, okay, no, that was just like an aberration. As it turns out, humans are still way smarter than any fish.
Dolphins are mammals, they're not fish. Come on, get
I
your
know.
shit together. Get your fucking shit together. Get your shit together.
I was being willfully ignorant because I felt like I was getting too high level, and I wanted to take it down a notch because it's a sports podcast.
People know dolphins aren't fish. That's like a commonly understood concept.
People refer to the Miami Dolphins as the fish. Is that true or false? I believe that's a colloquial way of referring to that team.
Oh my god, that might be true.
I think it's true. Yeah, people don't call them the mammals.
Maybe it's like a joke in that, like,
yeah,
they've been bad, they'll be bad, and it's like call them the fish. Whatever.
The point is this. Yeah, they ran the experiment and it didn't work. I think that the reason that it looked like maybe Kevin Porter Jr. could play point guard full time is because of, as you said, his ability to create space off the dribble, and he's got some decent passing chops, like for like a wing, or maybe even for like a scoring guard. He can occasionally throw a fairly nifty pass out of pick and roll situations, but so that alone doesn't make him a point guard, right? A point guard in the modern NBA is, in my opinion, like one of two things: either the focal point of an offense, like a lead ball handler who is expected to generate most of the offense, right? You don't want him to be that because you want Jalen Green to be that. Or, like a Tyrese Halliburton type who is more of kind of an old school, like game managing, like set his guys up point guard who can create his own offense, but like that could be a point guard, but I don't think he's not that either. He's not a traditional point guard, and he's not good enough to be a modern point guard. So he's not a point guard.
So the guys that are like kind of the second tier point guards, the not offensive hub point guards, those guys now need to be really good 3-point shooters.
Yeah.
Like they cannot, like you cannot just, like back in the day, you used to be able to bring the ball up the court and pass. And like that was your only contribution to the offense. You cannot do that anymore. Like if you think that type of player has a spot in the NBA, you're wrong. There are guys that like can kind of make it work, like a Ricky Rubio, but like those guys are also really good defensively, and they're like incredible passers, right?
Yeah.
Like they have to bring something else to the table. And Porter Jr. has shown at times he can be a pretty good defensive player, but he definitely is not a good defensive player at this stage. I think his mentality is too easily rattled by what's going on in the game and his own performance to be like a consistent good defender. There are moments where I go, oh, like I see why people think he's a good defender. And then I see moments where I'm like, okay, like what makes you a good defender aren't the 5% moments where you make a highlight play. They're the 95% moments where nothing happens and you have to stay locked in. It's like as you say in like football or like, but even basketball, the greatest defensive player in the history of the sport would never get an assist or never get a steal, and never get a block because the guy he's covering would never touch the ball. Like he would and like that's kind of like the point, is like the best defensive players don't have to like you don't want them making a lot of plays because the guy they're covering basically is supposed to be like, shit, I need to get rid of the ball. Like I cannot have the ball. I can't even try anything.
Yeah. I always thought about this. I have two things I want to say before we clue up the Rockets roundup, but I always thought about that when the team had both Trevor Ariza and Corey Brewer. I always thought like a casual fan watching would think, well, this guy Corey Brewer is incredible on defense, and this guy Trevor Ariza doesn't really do that much. But it was the opposite, right? Ariza was just solid. Like he blanketed his man. He stopped drive attempts. He was able to get under pick and rolls really quickly or like under screens. and cover guys. He wasn't a big playmaker on defense, but Corey Brewer got caught with his ass out all the time. He'd go for steal and not get it, and it would lead to an easy basket. Yeah, he'd make some excellent plays. I used to always joke that he was my favorite player to piss my friends off, but he blew it often enough too, and that's what you're saying. Going back to KPJ for a second, I had this debate on Twitter earlier with somebody who I enjoy talking about basketball with quite a bit. He was saying it doesn't really matter if KPJ is a traditional point guard because the offense can run through Şengün as a hub and KPJ is just there to score. Like, yeah, fair enough. Except for, as you were saying, that really only works if he's going to hit 37% of 6 or 7 threes per night, right? Because if Şengün's going to be the hub, he needs spacing around him. He doesn't need driving and penetration around him. Like, cutting helps a little bit, but what he really needs is guys that'll knock down threes, right? So if it's going to be 4-out spacing with Şengün as the hub, Kevin Porter Jr. is not a good fit for that either. So I just think he's 6 man.
No shame in being the 6 man.
No shame.
Most of the time, the 6 man is like the 4th most talented guy on a team.
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's get out of the Rockets roundup. All right. I had a lot of fun talking about how Kevin Porter Jr. isn't a point guard. I'm sure someone listening to this is like, he is. I'm like,
oh yeah,
fucking die on that hill if you want to, but you'll be dead soon. Like,
yeah,
you're not. You ain't gonna last long. This ain't Gettysburg.
Because last thing, that's funny. I'll say that I think like Trey Burke or Rubio or someone like that is going to be the starting point guard for this team next year, and he's going to be the 6th man. And if he doesn't like it, he might not have a place. But I have a feeling he'll adjust, actually, to be honest. But anyway, I don't think it's going to last past this season.
It's the fucking perfect role for him. Hey, man, just go do you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, coach. Like,
22 minutes a night, you're the focal point of the offense, and then for another 6-7 minutes a night, try to fit in with what everybody else is doing, Yeah,
and also, hey, you have to go against backups, so you look better. It's a fucking win for everyone.
Yeah.
But being a starter carries weight, and these guys, fragile egos. Okay, Rockets roundup is the rocket has hit the target. It is kablooey. We're done with that.